Is this thing on?
1, 2.
I said, is this thing on? All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Time to get up, get your coffee, get your tea, get your Bible. We're going to start this week out right. Listen, the Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. Maharold Peoples Jr. We've come to inspire. Come to take you higher. Set your mind on fire. So you can call the devil a liar. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. It's Maharold Peoples Jr. Maharold Peoples Jr. That's it. All right, shake yourself off. Get ready for a fantastic week.
Good morning. Happy Resurrection Sunday. This is your boy, Maharold Peoples Jr. I welcome you to Selah, the Maharold Peoples Jr. Morning Show. How y'all doing this morning? Are you glad to be alive? Are you glad to be here? Are you thanking God for life? I am. I'm thanking God for life and life abundantly. I missed you guys all week. We had a wonderful show last week, and we got a wonderful show planned for you on today to bless you, uplift you, encourage you, inform you. So welcome. Got Lady Rain on technology. Dr. Lady Rain, let me say that. I mean, make sure I give her the respect that she is due. She's Dr. Lady Rain. Amen. On technology. Good morning, Lady Rain. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. Share this while we're talking. Y'all can go ahead and share this on your various pages because this is going to bless you on today. And just as a reminder, those of you who want to donate to the show to keep it on the air, there's information that'll be on the screen and in the dialogue boxes on how you can donate just to keep this show on the air. Thank you for being a blessing by coming and joining me every week, and also by going to our website, praise.fm. Also, thank you for voting for praise.fm during the Stella Award nomination process last week. You voted for Lady Rain and praise.fm. Thank you so much for the support. I want to dedicate this show today to a friend of mine who passed away a couple of days ago. Her name is Faith Smith. She was a local musician, a local choir director extraordinaire, staple here in the Northern Virginia area. And I want to dedicate this show to her. She was a woman of excellence, a woman that gave God her best in music ministry. And so I want to dedicate this show to her. Don't want to be down, want to be up, because I know where she's at. She's good. I just want to praise God for her and her life and her family. So again, thank you for being with us today. Before we go any further, I know this is Resurrection Sunday, and I want to just lift up the scripture for you in Matthew 28, 1 through 10. It says, early on Sunday morning, as the day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. Then the angel spoke to the woman and said, "Don't be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead, just as he said would happen. Come see where his body was laying." I'm not going to read the rest of the verses, but that part right there rang out to me on this Resurrection Sunday. It said, "He isn't here. He isn't here." Now, you know, Jesus was crucified and he was placed in a borrowed tomb, but he told them, "Hey, listen, in 3 days, as measured by the Jewish calendar, in 3 days, he said, I'm coming back. So just look for me. I'm coming back." And so you would think that when they came to the tomb and the angel announced that he wasn't here, you would think that I would think that they would have come expecting to see the miracle. but they weren't coming to see the miracle. They were coming to actually service the body of Jesus Christ. They were coming to do the Jewish rituals. They were going to add spices and the bandages, update the band. They came to actually service a dead person. They weren't coming to visit a live person. They were coming to visit the body of someone that had passed away. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm expecting to see someone and they're not there, I get disappointed. When I'm supposed to meet somewhere and you're not there, I get disappointed. When you tell me that you're going to meet me for coffee and I get there and you're not there, I'm disappointed. When you tell me you're going to come to do something for me, you're going to come and you're going to fix my furnace and you don't show up, I'm upset because you're not here. You're not here. I'm upset. Listen, I'm calling you on the phone. What's going on? You're not here. I'm disappointed. But you know what? Flipping the script, when they got there, they should have been excited by the fact that he was not there. The Bible says that there was a great earthquake. Now, and the Bible quantifies and explains what that earthquake was. When the angel landed on earth, the ladies got to the tomb and an angel drops down, bam, hits the earth. The impact of the angel hitting the earth caused an earthquake. And the ladies, they fell out like they were dead. They wanted to die. And the angel said to them, listen, the Jesus that you are looking for, he is not here, just like he has been telling you. And understand something. A lot of times, you speak to people, those of us that are in ministry, we speak to people and they yes. And a lot of times they don't believe what God says. They don't believe what God promises. Jesus said, I'm going to rise in 3 days. And you would think that if they really believed him, all the disciples would have been there with coffee and tea. All the disciples would have been there, with a fresh set of clothes and some sandals for Jesus. They would have had a hot towel waiting for him. They would have had some bacon and eggs, some lox and bagels. They would have had something. They would have been there in expectation, but they were somewhere off mourning, and the two Marys came there to treat the dead body. But he is not. The angel said, he's not here. Didn't he tell you that he was going to be alive? He was going to rise up. Why are you surprised? Why are you in awe of the fact that he is not here? And so I want to tell you this as we get ready to go into the next session, that Jesus is not in dead places. He's not in a place of mourning. He's not in a place of decrepitation. He's not in a place where his body is breaking down, and Jesus is in living places because he's dealing with us in our lives today, and we are alive. And so the fact that he is not there in the grave ought to cause us to rejoice, ought to cause us to have hope, because when we look at the tomb, we can say he is not here, but he has risen like he said. And because he lives, we can live also. Because he lives, we can have life, and life more abundantly. Now I want to ask you this question as we go into this next segment. Are you proud or are you grateful? There's a difference. Are you proud or are you grateful? I'm not proud because I follow Christ and I follow Jesus. I'm grateful for the opportunity and the privilege to follow Christ. On this Resurrection Sunday, I want to ask you, are you proud? Or are you just bragging because, I follow Jesus, I'm a Christian, I'm all of that? Or are you humbled by the fact that in essence, next to Jesus, next to God, next to all creation, we're really nothing. But because of his grace, because of his mercy, he allows us to partake in eternal life and life more abundant here on this side. I got to wind this up, but he is not here. Look at the tomb and you can say he is not here. He is alive. We got a song. This is Resurrection Sunday, and there's a song by Milton Brunson and the Thompson Community Choir that I want to play. It says Jesus Rose. We playing some classics this morning. Jesus Rose by Milton Brunson and the Thompson Community Choir. Enjoy this.
You're listening to Selah, the Maharold People's Junior Morning Show on Praise.fm.
Good morning. Welcome back to Selah, the Maharold People's Junior Morning Show with your boy Maharold People's Jr. Remember, like I said a few minutes ago, when you look at that tomb, look at that dead situation, he's not there. He's the God of life. Glad to have you. I see you guys are chiming in, man. Y'all in here full form this morning. I see about 58, 53 of you guys on here. Numbers are going up. Thank y'all for chiming in. Jackie Johnson Simpkins, I see you there. Edmonia, I see you there. Y'all coming on in. I appreciate y'all so much. I appreciate y'all. Y'all comment. Let us know. We'll make sure we answer. If you have any questions, or if you have any comments for the show, any suggestions, any ideas, any insight, just tell me you like the show. Tell me you've been enjoying it. Come on, put it up there and let me see it. I love you guys. Thank you again for being on Selah this morning. And we are so blessed to have a wonderful guest with us this morning. Those of you that know, I have a heart for those that suffer from anxiety and from depression. And so sometimes I try to deal with those topics on this show. And today we want to deal with depression and anxiety, especially in this COVID season. And so today our guest is Dr. Jasmine R. Burton, PhD, owner and licensed psychologist. And she is the owner of Essence Psychological Health Services. And she's with us today. She is a published doctor as well as a doc. She specializes in the needs of women, and actually most of Dr. Burton, most of the folks that are on our show are women. So we thank God. And so Dr. Burton, welcome you to Selah, Maharold People's Junior Morning Show. Welcome, greetings.
Good morning, happy Resurrection Sunday, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show. Awesome. We're glad to have you. Those of you that may not know, Dr. Burton and I, we grew up in the same church together, and so I looked up to your parents. You know, they were great, and your whole family. They were great family. I could tell how your father is a doting father, which means y'all girls are spoiled. I know. I know y'all are, because I could see, as a young man, I could see how he doted on you girls. And so I want to give a shout out to James and Teresa for raising such awesome children. Just before we get into the meat of everything, and I really want to take some time to get into some things with you, Dr. Burton. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, about your practice, Essence, and just how I'm curious how you entered this field of study. Yeah, well, as you alluded to, I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, deeply rooted in the church, reared by parents that were really committed to the community. So, I couldn't help but have that seep into me. So, being brought up in the family and the community that I was in the Bronx, New York, just having a deep commitment and curiosity about my community, about the strengths and the resilience of my community, but also about the responses that people in my community had to just day-to-day struggles and challenges and how that impacted their mental health. So when I was blessed to go on to college, that was something that I was really curious about and wanting to investigate. And that's what led me to the field of psychology. And through the course of my education and training, just really passionate about people of color, the impact of the social historical experiences that we've had here in the United States and across the diaspora, and the impact of that on mental health. And over time, throughout the course of my training, my focus became very narrow to women's mental health. So I've been blessed to work in so many different settings, from criminal justice settings. So I've worked in prisons, psychiatric hospitals, community mental health, you name it, I've worked there. But I've focused that work on the experiences of women. So back in 2014, when I decided to launch my own practice, I wanted to create a space for women to experience and talk about their lives' experiences and its impact on their mental health there. So my practice, Essence Psychological Health Services, focuses exclusively on the experiences of women, children, and family, specifically targeting women and helping to bolster and support them. Because we know that if you can impact the life of one woman, you can impact the lives of her family, all of the people that she works with, and her communities as well.
That's right. So
people throw, as a person who has struggled myself with depression, anxiety on major levels, people throw that phrase depression and those phrases depression, anxiety, they kind of throw them kind of flippantly. They use them kind of flippantly. So in light of that, what is the clinical definition of depression and anxiety?
Right. And that's a great question. I'm so glad that you're asking it, because there is some clarification that needs to be made. But to understand the true experience of clinical depression and other clinical disorders, it's important to understand what mental health is, right? And so to understand mental health, as human beings, it's normal for us to experience fluctuations in our mood that are just a result of living life. So it is normal for all of us to experience periods of sadness, periods of fear and anxiousness, periods of distress related to upsetting events. That is a part of the normal human experience. But we get into the range of a clinical disorder when that experience starts to impact our functioning across situations. So as it relates to depression, clinical depression is defined as experiencing sadness, hopelessness, loss of interest for a period of 2 weeks. So every day for about 2 weeks, you're going to be experiencing those symptoms in addition to some other symptoms. So there could be changes in your appetite, changes in your sleep, changes in your focus or concentration. You could be having more thoughts about death, just death and dying. And in the more extreme phases of it, you might experience thoughts, ritualistic thoughts about harming yourself. And so the presence of those symptoms, in addition to impairment. And so when we're talking about impairment, we're talking about a deficit in your ability to be able to function across settings. So if you're experiencing impairment, it's going to be challenging for you to function at home, function at work, function at school, and that functioning is so impaired that individuals might not be able to get out of bed. They can't show up at work or school. Their relationships are impaired. So when you start to see the presence of those symptoms for 2 weeks or more, and it's contributing to impairment, then you're in the range of having a clinical disorder, in this case, depression. So, when we experience stress, when we experience anxiety, when we experience depression, that's a part of the normal human experience. And most of us can have those periods and be able to bounce back from those periods over time. However, if we experience those symptoms persistently for a minimum of 2 weeks, and those symptoms contribute to impairment as well, then you're in the range of having a clinical disorder.
And I know there's a stigma that's attached to being depressed, or more so being clinically diagnosed. And a lot of times people don't want to admit that all these things that you've shared, all these things that you have delineated so far are things I'm experiencing, because it will make me look like I'm crazy. Like something is wrong with me because I'm experiencing. Have you dealt with people dealing with stigma, with the stigma of depression, anxiety?
Absolutely. It's very prevalent. I think across cultures, we see stigma of mental health being prevalent, but particularly in Black and Brown communities. It's something that is not deemed okay. And so to be going to see a shrink, who psychologists are called, or, getting psych meds or crazy pills, all of those things are something that are deemed inherently negative, because we associate crazy with weakness. We associate crazy with not being able to take care of yourself. We also, in some cases, associate crazy with not being safe or mentally stable, someone that might be violent. But the truth is, when we think about the prevalence rates, 1 in 5 Americans experiences depression or anxiety. 1 in 5, so about 20% of children experience that as well. When we think about more serious, more persistent mental health disorders, 1 in 25 people experience it. So this is not something that is very rare. It's something that is actually more normal than people want to talk about. But in talking about it, we have to also face some of the stereotypes and the stigma that is associated with it, because the stigma creates a burden and it makes it hard for people to seek out help when they need it. And what we know for the Black community is that when we experience mental health disorders, we tend to have the revolving door and end up having more severe presentations of it, not because we are more pathological or more ill, but because it takes us so long to to get the help. It takes us so long to engage in preventative behaviors and action until it's really severe.
Right.
And as a result of that, we can find that we have a lot of difficulties linked to mental health that could have been avoided if the issue were addressed.
Right.
Now, another thing not to be ignored as it relates to some of the barriers to people seeking mental health treatment is the fact that there's a lot of disparities in mental health treatment services that are available. So we know that, unfortunately, there's a disproportionate number of Black and Brown practitioners of color. So oftentimes people can recognize that there's a problem. They could recognize that they'd like help. But if they don't see someone that looks like them, they feel like they're not going to be understood. And so that could be a reason why people aren't speaking up about mental health challenges that they might be facing or seeking help.
Right. Well, you know, one thing you just said is sometimes people interpret it as weakness. And as a Black man, I didn't deal with or admit mine, and because I was afraid that saying it might make me appear weak to people, and I never want to present a weak front to anyone as a man. But I definitely relate, because, you know, when you say I'm suffering from this and that, sometimes people, because of stigma, people all formulate things about you, you know, oh, he's weak. He's, you know, he doesn't, you know, something's wrong with him. And then that makes you not want to share, because who wants to feel vulnerable? But one of the things that I want you to clarify a little bit, hone in on a little bit on is, and someone actually, Nadia asked the same question. Can you pin it down a little bit more? What's the difference between depression and anxiety? Because people kind of put it together and they're not actually the same. Totally.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Depression and anxiety are not the same, but they often co-occur. So that's often why it's lumped together. So depression is a mood disorder. So depression will impact your mood. So one of the first things that we see with depression is sadness, but we could also see irritability. We could see a numbness, an emotional numbing, so not feeling anything. So that can be the emotional presentation with depression. Whereas anxiety itself, anxiety describes the experience of a pervasive fear, dread, or nervousness. Okay, and so as we know, anything could elicit that experience. You know, having a job interview, living through COVID, sending your children back to school, any of that can evoke those feelings. But when we're talking about an anxiety disorder, again, that fear, that dread, that nervousness becomes impactful, so impactful that it can impair your ability to function in different areas of your life. So there are different presentation of anxiety disorders. One anxiety disorder that we often talk about, but we sometimes mislabel, is a panic disorder. So a panic disorder consists of a panic attack. So often you hear people say, oh, I had an anxiety attack. And what happens when they're describing that experience is that they're having an onset of panic-like symptoms. And so with those panic-like symptoms, it can be a brief period in which you feel like you're going to die. And so that feeling is coming from some physiological symptoms where your heart is beating fast, you have a shallow or hard time breathing or catching your breath, you can feel really flushed, you could be sweating a lot. And that experience is so extreme that you feel like I am going to die. And the thing that makes it so scary is that it can have a sudden onset. So you could just be walking around having a normal day, not experiencing any stressors, and then like that, it can come on. And so that is a panic attack. Now, for individuals that experience a panic disorder, these are people that have had a panic attack before, and that experience itself can create so much dread that they are constantly afraid of having another panic attack. Because again, with a panic attack, you never know when it's going to come. It can feel like it's coming out of nowhere.
Right.
So that experience can be very scary. And so for some people, they can become so fearful of having a panic attack at any time. They could start to avoid certain situations. So they could avoid going to the place where they had that initial panic attack, or in some very extreme cases, they could avoid leaving the home altogether because they're fearful of having that panic attack happen at a place or a time that they feel is out of their control. Right.
And I can relate, because people think that it is always it's always an external stimulant that, or some external stimuli that ignites that. And sometimes it's not. It's not like, you know, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it just something inside you just and all of a sudden you're having these panic attack moments, and you're having these episodes, and you're asking yourself, why am I having this? Why, everything, even when everything is good seemingly around you, you can still experience this, and people can ask you, what happened? No, nothing happened. I'm just feeling this. And I don't know, are you able to, are we as a layperson, when I have these kind of attacks, what's the best way for me to handle it on myself immediately on point? If I can't get on the phone to a doctor or my pastor, how do I deal with that?
Well, I think it's important to try to control your controllables. And so there are a number of approaches that you can take. One, you could try to think your way out of it. But if you're in the midst of a panic attack, one of the things that people typically have is racing thoughts. So if you're trying to combat a thought with a thought, that's going to be pretty challenging in the moment.
Right.
So if the thoughts aren't working, you want to try to engage in some behaviors that can actively help to calm you down. So one of the things that might be helpful is getting up and moving your body. Sometimes going for a walk, getting some fresh air, doing some calming, relaxing stretches or movements that can help to shift your physiological state. Because again, with panic, you're going to feel it first in your body. So it's going to have racing heart, breathing hard, all of those things. So anything that can shift your body into a more calm state, that can help to bring down that overall level of distress, so you can start to think differently. And so once you're in a calmer space, some of the thoughts that you want to tell yourself is that I am okay. You can remind yourself of where you are. You can remind yourself of the date. So for instance, you can say today is Sunday, April 4th, 2021. Home, I'm with my family, I am here, because you have to remind yourself that you're safe. Because what happens when we're in the midst of panic is that there's a signal that's sent to your brain that says, I am not safe. Right. And that hence causes that feeling of dread, because your body is preparing to defend itself against something. And so oftentimes we have to remind ourselves that there's no present threat. There's nothing that you have to defend yourself from. So you have to first get yourself to a calm enough state so that you can engage in that thought process.
Right. Well, I want to delve deeper into this, but before we do, we want to again, this is Resurrection Sunday, and we want to play a little song for Resurrection Sunday called "He Got Up" by Sean McLemore. All right, we want to lift y'all up, y'all. I see y'all are chiming in. Thank y'all so much. I see y'all coming. Some folks from Sharon on here too. From Sharon Baptist, thank y'all for coming on. But we want to play this song called "He Got Up," Sean McLemore.
I'm glad that Jesus died for me. I'm glad that Jesus rose for me. 3 long days, got up on that grave. He got up, a power in his hands. I'm glad that Jesus died for me. He rose for 3 long days. 3 long days. Got up on that grave. He got up. All power in his hands. I'm glad that Jesus died for me. I'm glad that Jesus rose for 3 long days. 3 long days. Got up on that grave. He got up. Come on. All power in his hands.
Listen, he stayed there.
He stayed there.
On that Friday night. He stayed there.
He stayed there.
On day Saturday. He stayed there.
He stayed there.
On that Saturday night. But early. He got up. 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 He
listening to Selah, the Maharold Peoples Jr. Morning Show on Praise.fm.
Good morning. Welcome back to Selah, the Maharold Peoples Jr. Morning Show with your boy Maharold Peoples Jr. I see you guys are chiming in, and I see a bunch of you guys who just chimed in as of a few minutes ago. I see Summer Archie. I see our guest mother, Teresa. Good to see you. Good to see. I know you're gonna be on here supporting your girl. I know you are. That's how mothers do. They advocates for their kids. If the real parents are advocates for their kids. But again, welcome to Selah. Listen, I have a wonderful guest on with me, Dr. Jasmine Burton, PhD, and we're dealing with anxiety, depression. Those of you that need to reach her or would like to make contact with her, her information is on the screen. Her website is on the screen. Her email is on the screen. Please reach out to her if you have some questions and some inquiries. Now, this is what I want you to do before we go back in the interview. I want you to be honest, because one of the things I know that when you're dealing with depression, anxiety, one of the things that you should do is to be honest with yourself, and it's all right to admit I need help. So I want you to put this in the remarks. Say, if this is you and you're struggling with some of the things we're talking about today, say, yes, I struggle and I am not ashamed. Say, yes, I struggle and I am not ashamed, because we're going to pray for you today. So say, yes, I struggle and I am not ashamed. I'll tell you, yes, I struggle, but I am not ashamed. So if I can say it, you can say it. You can admit it as well. So again, we have Dr. Burton on with us today, and we're going to delve deeper into this topic. Now, we've been dealing with COVID, Dr. Burton. We've been dealing with COVID. And so, actually, let me stop back a minute. Let me first say thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving your insight on this topic and agreeing to be on the show. But we're dealing with COVID, and it's not over yet. COVID has had a profound effect on the whole of society, and not just our country, but our world. And from your perspective, from your clinical perspective, I know you've I know you've been dealing with your patients and your clients. But from your perspective, how has COVID affected the mental health of people? Not only people who have contracted, but people who have lost members of the family because of COVID, and people who just been isolated because of COVID. How, from your perspective, what have you been dealing with your patients?
Yeah, I can honestly say that COVID has rocked our world, literally. And so, in my practice, I'm seeing people that have been impacted by COVID in so many ways, from them experiencing COVID themselves, or fear about family members contracting COVID, or even losing family members to COVID. So, stress, depression, anxiety linked to the virus itself, but also linked to the financial stress that we've experienced, linked to the racial stress that we experienced during this era, even the political turmoil that we've experienced at this time. All of those things have impacted us, in addition to the isolation that we've experienced, right? We've been confined to our homes for an expanded period of time. And in that isolation, we haven't been able to tap into the communities and the resources that we started to take for granted. So, for many of us, the option of going to church and worship with our church families, that went away. The ability to spend time with friends and family has gone away. And so we've seen the layered impact of that for individuals from children all the way to older adults. It's been extremely impactful. But, I think that in talking about COVID, we have to also talk about how this time has been beneficial for many of us. With us being confined to our homes, we got to reclaim time, right? And so, gone away was the hustle and bustle of the commute for many of us. Many of us were confined to our homes, so we had more time with our children, more time to really connect. And so for many people, as we start to shift and move back into the re-entry phase of this pandemic, many people are grieving the loss of the time that they were able to reclaim in this COVID space. And so it's a very layered experience that we've been having. It's a collective one, right? So many of us can share in the many losses that we've experienced in this time. But in many ways, COVID has changed the game in ways that are ultimately beneficial. So we've reclaimed time. It's opened the door for conversations, particularly around race in this country, that weren't being had prior to this. And so for those reasons, those were some good things related to this experience. But overall, many of us have been experiencing a lot of stress related to this stage and this era in our time.
Yeah, and the stress, like you said, it's been compounded. With all that's happening in society, with this last political race, and the attacks on the Capitol, and just the racial the racial attacks that we've been experiencing. It's like all compounded, just uncompounded, and we're visual people. So, we look at the news and people don't realize that the eyes are the window of the mind in many respects. And I always tell people, you are what you eat. And so, what you feed your mind has to affect you. And so, because I remember 9/11, I had to step away from the TV because the images were flooding my mind. They were flooding. And I realized, oh my God, I'm depressed, because all I was doing was feeding my mind images of people jumping out of windows, buildings collapsing, planes crashing in the building. I was feeding myself these things all the time, constantly, and I was depressed. I was in a down mood, and so I want to say, I want to ask you, people who are dealing with this during COVID, this piling on of issues and the bad news. You hear bad news. Numbers going up, people dying in the hospital. Quite a few of my friends have actually died. Several of my family members have contracted COVID at the same time. What people who are dealing with this, help us to navigate. How can they navigate through this system right now, through this situation of COVID?
Yeah. And so, I think the first step is to acknowledge what's going on, and now acknowledge that this is a really difficult time. And in this difficulty, acknowledge if you're having a hard time dealing with it by yourself. And so, you talked about shame. Shame is something that we all can experience at times. But the thing to address shame, to get around shame, is talking about it, because shame exists in the darkness and the silence. So just saying, hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I need help. That's going to be the first step. And so in terms of just maintaining your overall well-being in this space and time, you want to stick to the basics. You want to make sure that you're eating well, drinking water, resting, maintaining a regular schedule, and engaging in some things that bring you joy, and connecting to other people. Engaging those things can just help to keep you at a steady pace to be able to navigate this time, because there's still tremendous amount of change that we're experiencing in this time. So doing those basic things can help you just to maintain an overall level of mental wellness to be able to navigate this space and time. Yeah. If after engaging in those things, you're still experiencing depression, anxiety, and again, it's impairing your ability to function, then it's going to be time for you to consider reaching out for help. One of the places that you can get help is through a physician. So if you have a PCP, a regular doctor that you see, that may be a way for you to seek help. So talk to your doctor, say, hey, doc, I haven't been feeling well. I'm having a hard time getting out of bed. I don't have any desire to bathe myself. I can't feed my kids. I don't want to go to work. I'm dodging work. Then those are going to be some signs of impairment, and your physician can support you in trying to get some help, whether that be connecting you with a licensed practitioner that can provide some type of talk therapy, medication, or some type of alternative therapies as well. So acknowledge that there's a problem, reach out for help. There's a ton of resources online. So you can go to Mental Health America, the National Association of Mental Illness. Any of these places can help you to connect you to some resources. And those resources can be something on an app. So it could be a device, an application that can help you with your mood management. It could be a website, it could be virtual. So in this COVID space, many of the services that we're receiving now are virtual. So you don't even have to leave your home to get the support that you need. But first you have to acknowledge to yourself that you have a problem or that you're having some challenges, and then reach out for help.
So I know that I usually, when I have someone on the show, I research them.
I kind of look into them and everything. Why are you laughing? I kind of look into what they're what they're about, and so I mean I found a myriad of things that but one of your specializations is women issues. Mm-hmm. So I know there are women's issues that or issues that are inherent, I should say, to women. That you confront, that you deal with. Can you share some of those things, those challenges that you confront with your clients, particularly women?
Yeah, but I just need to correct you here, because when we're talking about mental health and mental illness, it's not that there are specific mental health conditions that are inherent to women. It's more the case that women are more likely to report and experience these symptoms, and it's largely linked to some of the cultural and historical experiences that women face. So because women historically, particularly in the United States, is a very patriarchal society. So because women are more likely to be paid less, more likely to experience sexual trauma, more likely to be the caregivers of children, because of that, we are more likely to experience some mental health conditions. But some of that has to do with the culture around mental health. So women are going to be more likely to go to a doctor to say, hey, I'm feeling sad and depressed, because women are socialized to express our emotions more so than a man would. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a woman is going to be more likely to experience depression than a man, but a woman may be more likely to reach out for help. And once that woman reaches out for help, then we're able to track the prevalence rates and statistics around women and help-seeking behaviors.
Gotcha.
So we know
so you mean like men? It's not that these conditions are inherent to women, but it's just that women are more apt to admit it and deal with it, whereas men might be experiencing the same thing and are less apt.
In many cases, right? Now, from a biological perspective, because all human beings, we experience hormonal fluctuations, right? But for women, because our hormonal fluctuations happen on a more secular pattern, then we might be more sensitive to those hormonal changes. And then that might contribute to certain presentations of, let's say, depression. So women have menstrual cycles, and because of that, we can experience a premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. So depression that's linked to that experience. Women also have the experience of having children, and because of that, we are more likely to experience a perinatal mood disorder. So that's a depression, anxiety, psychosis that occurs during the period of pregnancy, after delivery, all the way up to the period of breastfeeding. So because of these hormonal changes, women are going to have that sensitivity to those hormones that can contribute to the development of depression. But when we're talking generally about depression and anxiety, as human beings, we're all susceptible to depression. But again, culturally, it's more acceptable for women to seek out mental health treatment. And because of that, you're going to see larger numbers of women that are diagnosed and treated. Right. But if we were to just ask a woman to speak honestly about their experiences, there would be pretty equal likelihood that they can experience depression. But again, because of cultural factors that women experience, that can increase that experience. And then the hormonal factors can increase that as well.
Okay, got you. So I like to still talk about this. So Lady Rain, what we're gonna do is I'm skipping this next song. I want to stay right here. I want to deal with this because this for me is an important topic because I've had people that I know I've known who have taken their lives because they have lost all hope, didn't get help, didn't speak to anyone, and thought their only recourse was to end their lives. And so this topic comes close to home to me because I've dealt with it as well myself. Now I know everything is today is COVID. Mm-hmm. And now our kids are going back to school. They have we live in a society, which means social. Which means we interact. We go to and fro. We deal with one another, and so the kids are going back to school. I can say post-COVID because COVID's not over. I can't really say post-COVID. Kids are going back to school in light of the vaccinations that are being dispensed around the country. And adults have been cooped up in the house with their kids, trying to keep them safe. And a lot of adults have dealt with, and their kids have dealt with depression and anxiety, and now they have to go back to school. So how can we deal? Give us some insight as to how those of us or those parents that are dealing with the situation, how they can deal with the depression and anxiety associated with returning back to society?
Yeah, I think that the first thing to do is to talk to your children about the feelings that returning or re-entering is evoking. I know for me as a parent of a 5-year-old, I have a little girl that is super excited to return to school. So I give her room to talk about that excitement, but I also give her room to talk about the fears that she has, so she talks about, well, mommy, what happens if I get sick? Or do I have to wear a mask all day? Or what if people don't like me? These are just normal fears that children experience when they're transitioning back to school. But there are going to be some nuanced parts of that experience. So for her, for instance, she just recently had a friend come over, and she was so excited to have that friend come over, and she immediately wanted to hug her friend. She wanted to be really close to her friend, but her friend's mom was just like, no, baby, it's still COVID, right? We still have to have that distance, but that distance was not normal and natural for her. So talking to our children about, their thoughts and feelings about it, but also how re-entering is going to be different, and about how they can navigate that, because she could easily have experienced that, her friend putting her arm back as rejection. Right. And not really understand that, no, it's not about her rejecting you, but this is about the new space that we're in, and about how we need to navigate and manage our closeness in a very different way. And so, talking to small children in particular about their feelings, about how things are going to be different, but for older children, processing with them the losses that they experienced at the start of the pandemic. So for many students, they didn't have the opportunity to go to prom or graduation or have those natural experiences that mark their time in school. So talking to them about the loss and the grief that they may experience about that, and how that might shape, their feelings about school going forward. So is school less important for them? Do they feel like, well, you know what, because I've been out of school and not connected to my peers for so long, they might decide that they don't want to go to school at all. For many students, virtual will still be an option for them. Right. So talking to them about those feelings, but also weighing out with them the pros and cons of returning to school and being able to reconnect with people, and also, staying out of school and, remaining COVID safe, just weighing the pros and cons with them around that. Now, for parents, there's definitely a shift that's going to be happening, because for so many parents, they've been educating their children at home, and that has been rewarding and also stressful, because many of us were not prepared to act as educators. Right. So, as they prepare for that transition, talking with parents or having parents spend time thinking about, okay, so now what does this transition back to school mean in terms of my time with my child, in terms of the layers now of what the drop-off and pick-off process looks like, because there are going to be things that are different. Before you could walk your child into the school, now for many schools, that's not an option at all. You just drop them at the curb, and then your child just goes in on their own, or they're escorted by a teacher. So really understanding what the changes are and thinking about the emotions that are elicited by those changes.
Yeah, it's been a challenging time for parents and kids as well. By the way, I'm looking, Deborah Womble sends her love. I see her online, Deborah Womble, the Womble family. And she said, let me correct Deborah Womble Hinton. She's married now, and she's part of Sharon Baptist Church family. And she's chiming in, and she feels that this is a great topic to discuss. We've almost exhausted our time, and I have a myriad of questions and things I want to discuss. But as we close, first of all, promise me I can get you back on the show again. Please.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what I'm gonna ask you is in our closing, what do you say to people that people on here, just statistically, they're suffering, they're going through things. But what can you say to them in terms of getting help? What would you advise in terms of getting help, getting assistance, talking to someone? What would be your advice as to people that are going through some of the things we discussed today?
Yeah, I would just, want to remind people that we are living through an unprecedented time. And so everything that we're experiencing is out of the norm, not something that any of us have been prepared for, because most of us have not lived through a pandemic before. So your reaction to an unprecedented time is not unnormal. It's not irrational. It's not crazy. Your reaction is normal. And so it's okay to talk about your normal reaction to an abnormal experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not something that you should be fearful of or shameful of. If you experience that shame, know that you're not alone, but you can heal from that shame. You can overcome your shame, and help is here if you need it. So there are a ton of resources that are available. If you're seeking a therapist, you can go online and look at such resources as Psychology Today, therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men. If you are struggling, having thoughts of harming yourself or someone else, you can reach out to the crisis line. If you're at home and home is not a safe place for you, if you're experiencing any type of domestic violence towards you, towards your children, there are a ton of resources that are available for individuals that are having that experience. You don't have to suffer through or endure what you're going through alone. And if your concern in reaching out and actually going places is COVID and safetyness, just know that there are layers of safetyness to support you as you go out to seek help, but also remain safe.
Well, I want to piggyback and tell everyone, if you're not going through alone. You don't have to go through it alone. Tell somebody, share, get help. Don't sit in that dark closet. Don't sit in that dark space that can consume you and eat you and devour you. Get up and tell somebody, I'm going through and I need some help. Reach out. There are resources available to you. Dr. Burton, again, those of you that want to reach out to Dr. Burton, her information is on the screen, the website and information is on the screen. Please reach out if you so desire, and if it's not her, anyone, reach out and find, like she said, go to your doctor, tell your doctor, your regular doctor, I need some help. Can you advise me who I need to see, who I can see to help me? But get some help. I'm going to have Dr. Burton back. I hope in a couple of weeks. I hope she'll come back on the show, because I still have a bunch of things I want to pick your mind about. But I want to say thank you for being on the show today. And anything you want to say to the folks before we close out there? Because a bunch of Sharonites been coming in and out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and speak to your listeners. If anyone is interested, you can reach me on social media. My business is ePsych Health on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter as well. And again, if you're struggling, you don't have to have that experience alone. There are plenty of people that are available to help and support you. And I also have an upcoming women's trauma group we'll be launching in the summer. So if you are a woman that has experienced any form of trauma and you're looking to find support, get help and relief from any symptoms related to trauma, please come and join this group.
Yes. And so actually our next time I want to discuss that further too, the women's trauma group. We're going to discuss that on our next talk. But again, thank everybody for being on the show, on Selah, Maharold People's Junior Morning Show. You have our information on screen. Reach out to us. Let us know what you thought of today's show. We really listen. Next week, we have a surprise for you guys. Wonderful gift for you guys. Grammy Award winning artists Angelo and Veronica will be my guests next week, and you do not want to miss that show. Again, thank you, Dr. Burton. Thank you, Dr. Lady Rain, for everything that you guys have done today. And next week, I look forward to seeing you on Selah, the Maharold People's Junior Morning Show. There's a song we're going to close out with, Donald Lawrence, Matthew 28, the scripture that I read today, Matthew 28, Donald Lawrence. God bless you. We love you. See you next week on Selah.
Sunday morning, as the noonday was dawning, came Mary, Magdalene, fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men.
And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men.
Oh, but the story lightens right here. An angel of the Lord appeared unto the women and said, fear not. Fear not. Fear not. For I know.
Ye see Jesus who was crucified.
He is not here.
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 Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He is not here.
He is not here.
For he hath risen as he said.
For he has risen as he said.
See the place where the Lord used to lay.
See the place where the Lord lay.
Let's review the story one more time. An angel of the Lord spoke to the women and said, fear not. Fear not. Fear not. For I know.
Ye see Jesus who was crucified.
He is not here.
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 Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He is not here.
He is not here.
For he has risen as he said.
For he has risen as he said.
Come see the place where the Lord used to lay.
See the place where the Lord lay.
Remember how he said while he was yet in Galilee?
Remember how he said while he was yet in Galilee.
What did he say, sopranos? What did he say, sopranos? You can have that, Ricky Dillon.
You are tuned in to that praisey station, Praise.fm, where we get our praise on. 24 hours, 7 days a week.